Water is even worse than food. You should never put any liquid in your body.
And Nastya hasn't eaten for 2.5 years. I can see this because I've lived with her for a long time. She's an interesting girl. She can run 10 kilometers in the middle of the night. She needs it.
Well, I haven't washed my body in about 1.5 years. And I haven't washed my hair in 1 year either. Marina and I haven't had a drink for a long time. She, like, 1 year, I, 2.5 or 3 years, I don't remember exactly.
And what about the idea that we should cleanse our cells, that we have to drink lots of liquids, that we're 90% water, just like a cucumber?
My mom says, if you're 90% water, then why add more? Sleep and food take everything from you. They turn you into a beggar. Sleep consumes about 80% of our energy, food consumes the rest.
You got sick, that is. You faced some unfair situation, with that pain in your body.
Why unfair? I've never been through anything unfair in my life. It doesn't matter if a brick falls on my head, if someone calls me stupid, or something like that. The reason is always within me. 20 years ago, in a lecture at the Moscow Medical Academy, he said that one should never sleep at all, not for a second. While you sleep, you won't be able to find your true path, because sleep is a lie.
Nastya, could you briefly tell us how you became autonomous?
Marina and I probably followed a similar path. I also got to this point because of an illness. At 32, I was diagnosed with an incurable disease, rheumatoid arthritis. I was that kind of person, you know, stubborn, hard-working, eager to achieve things, to expand myself, to reach my full potential. And all of that came crashing down. Of course, I couldn't follow the usual path, because conventional medicine only offered me painkillers, which block the immune system from attacking the joints. And they seemed to help, but in reality, they only relieved the symptoms. They didn't solve my problem at all. You know what modern medicine does, and modern psychology too, which practically doesn't exist today, because they simply anesthetize us. They tell us that pain is bad, that we must fight it, both physical and mental. In other words, we must not allow pain. We must eliminate it. So we're all sort of under hypnosis, reassured. Everything's fine. Everything will be fine. This is a kind of brainwashing. All the things we're doing now are ordinary and simple. I don't want to consider myself a teacher. The very word bothers me. I don't see the point. I'm a researcher, a scientist, but an unconventional one. And my group is also dedicated to research, investigating oneself, and sharing our knowledge honestly. I started with an illness, realized that the path I was previously on wasn't right for me. I started making certain choices and began to emerge from the illness. First, I switched to a raw vegan diet, then to a lighter one, and then food started to cause serious side effects. I never thought this was a possibility, and I didn't have narcissistic thoughts about becoming a non-eater, so that I could then travel everywhere and talk about it or something like that. It's just that my body started reacting very sharply to everything I gave it. But I started practicing dry fasting, the so-called, now we call it our natural state. At first it was 3, 4, 5 or 6 days without food or water. Afterward, I might eat something once or twice, and then go back to dry fasting for 2 or 3 more days. And with this practice of eating light, my body started to react very badly to food. For example, I would eat a sprig of grapes, and then walk as if my body were made of metal. I couldn't turn my head or neck, everything was blocked. So there was no point in continuing to do that. Every time I ate, and it was always raw vegan food, raw fruit, vegetables or nuts, my body reacted with pain and swelling in my joints. Then I realized I was normal. But at first, I thought something was wrong with my body. I realized it was normal. Our norm is not to eat or drink. I also figured out the sleep issue, at first on my own, and then I came across an interesting lecture by Professor and Doctor of Medical Sciences Buteyko. 20 years ago, in a lecture at the Moscow Medical Academy, he said that one should never sleep at all, not for a second. Where had that lecture been? Why had no one seen it? Perhaps it was meant to be this way. First you arrive at something, and then the information begins to reveal itself. So even then, for such a brilliant person, I'd say, as Buteyko, it turned out that sleep was something completely forbidden. We achieve this through our own bodies, with practice. Sleep is just as stimulating as eating. It gives energy on credit. First you receive it, then you give it away. And there's always a decrease. What does it mean to live on stimulants? Imagine if you drink coffee every day. What does coffee do to you? It dries you out, of course. It gives a feeling of vigor, right? Everyone knows that effect. Well, any food does the same thing, not just coffee. When you enter a natural state, you see all this and begin to understand that a cucumber has the same effect. First, it gives energy just like coffee, and then there's a natural decrease. And so people live from stimulant to stimulant, from hit to hit, never regaining their energy or their natural state. Therefore, for me, it's a great mystery. And a question arises, how have we lived such a lie for so long? It's completely incomprehensible. How have we sunk so deeply into sleep? Gurdjieff, by the way, put it very beautifully. He said that awakening, achieving enlightenment, is right under our noses, literally. It turns out that physiologically, it's necessary to stop sleeping, and then incredible things begin to reveal themselves. We can imagine anything to wake up, but not a physiological denial of sleep. And as it turns out that this is precisely the point. By refusing to sleep, we begin to gain control.
With food, it's clear. You relapse, you feel bad, and you understand that it's better not to eat. But what about water? What if you want to drink or feel thirsty?
You no longer feel the need to drink.
Can you swim?
You can swim in natural waters but not drink. Marina and I haven't had a drink for a long time. She, like, a year. I, 2.5 or 3 years, I don't remember exactly. Water is even worse than food. You should never put any liquid in your body.
And what about the idea that we should cleanse our cells, that we have to drink lots of liquids, that we're 90% water, just like a cucumber?
My mom says, if you're 90% water, then why add more? Guys, we have so much information to share. I don't even know where to start. We would keep breaking down all these beliefs again and again. Sleep is an interesting topic. Today I slept until 1 a.m. and I feel terrible, because whenever I sleep even a little, I end up feeling terrible. Sleep is closely related to selfishness, to the false ego, like food. I think we can find common ground. This residual desire to withdraw into oneself, so to speak, to take care of oneself, still has its tentacles in me, and now I'm actively working on it. Sometimes, very rarely, I have periods of sleepiness, which, of course, affect my appearance and well-being. That's why I try not to sleep at all. I replace sleep with running. I run barefoot. You can see how my feet are. Forgive me, because I started running recently, also barefoot. Our Slava Timoshenko runs 30 kilometers barefoot every day. I've also adopted this practice. It's great and I recommend it. So you receive an enormous amount of energy, but it turns out you don't do anything with it. I mean, you don't do anything at all. And what is sleep? We are given a lot of energy. We don't use it. By the end of the day, this energy turns back on me and puts me to sleep. That's suicide. That's what an autoimmune disease is like my polyarthritis. It's self-destruction. I don't tap into my potential at all. And the force is directed toward my own body, A short circuit occurs, and I become unconscious. And the more potential I have, the more hours I'm unconscious. That's why I say we must also serve others, even at night. Sleep is replaced by service, inspiration, words directed toward others, and physical activity. Running is very energizing.
How did you understand that you would receive energy without eating or sleeping? And how is it that you don't run out of strength? After all, it's believed that energy comes from food, water, air, sleep, and good feelings.
First, I understood that others can't vampirize. It's generally accepted that people vampirize, and it's like, now you're all going to vampire me, and that only sleep and food provide restoration. This is an idea, a widespread understanding, but it turns out it's the other way around. Sleep and food take everything from you. That is, they turn you into a beggar. Sleep consumes about 80% of our energy, food consumes the rest. And people are the main resource, the main source of energy. Giving is a great privilege, to have the opportunity to give. I don't even know how long you need to practice not eating and not sleeping, for people to come and ask you to tell them or give them something. And sometimes I hear, I don't talk much to save energy. And how is that? What's it about? I have so much energy that what I do is ask people to take it from me, to vampirize me, the entire audience, the entire room. I want to give more and more energy until I have nothing left, so as not to fall into autoeroticism, as we call it. Autoeroticism is sleeping and eating. So what is this autoeroticism? It's eros, the energy that should be expanded toward society but directed toward oneself. This is called autoeroticism. Sleeping, eating and masturbating are autoeroticism. That is, when the system closes in on itself and dies because of these actions. Therefore, everything related to service, interaction, creativity, the stage, with others, is a space where I, as a generator, can simply give and receive energy. It's very important that the audience is alive. Why do people get so sleepy in schools, universities and lectures? Because there is no generation, there is no interaction. Or in cinema, in theatre, how is everything organized? There are actors on stage, and there is a passive audience. The audience in the hall falls asleep, longing for dinner to somehow cheer themselves up. People cheer themselves up with false stimulants, food and sleep. There's a lie and a truth. Food and sleep are false stimulants. And we're focusing on learning to live with true stimulants. And the true stimulus is love. The true incentive to live is love and connecting with others.
You got sick, that is, you faced some unfair situation, with that pain in your body.
Why unfair? I've never been through anything unfair in my life. Everything that happens to me is my own fault.
So you were born with this understanding. After all, others around you think differently. They believe there's a reason, that there's someone to blame, someone else, not me.
I learned this in my 20s. When I began seriously studying Western astrology, I studied psychology. I'm a medical psychologist. I started teaching and consulting. This is by no means predictive, but rather analytical astrology, which was also studied by Jung, Freud, and Lacan. And I understood then that the reason for everything that happens to me lies only within me. It doesn't matter if a brick falls on my head, if someone calls me stupid, or something like that. The reason is always within me. That's why I never blame anyone or take offense. I would say that autonomy has undoubtedly reinforced all of this understanding, and has given me more responsibility for everything that happens. I mean, I know, for example, that if a plane crashes somewhere in the world, it's my fault. But not from a place of guilt and passivity, but from listening, feeling, and correcting the pain. I mean empathy and correction. Love, relationships, children, Sexuality, parents, family, all of that helps. I mean, this isn't the path of a loner, this isn't the path of isolation, it isn't the path of self-isolation as many gurus teach us. This paranoid virus thing, the same thing we talked about, someone's to blame. The reptilians, the aliens, the government, the Americans, a virus. This is a paranoid stance. Guys, if you find someone blaming others, it means that person eats and sleeps. Whoever stops eating and sleeping sees clearly and begins to understand that they are responsible for everything. If I sleep, I limit myself even more. Because I set boundaries, I withdraw from interaction. What is sleep? It's leaving the stage and leaving you all there. It means I don't give a damn about the audience, and then I enter into autoeroticism. You see, people often get confused. They say we have many dependencies, that we depend a lot on others. But I say that we have never in our lives depended on other people. We have always pushed them away. 5-meter-high fences, houses and rooms, separations, walls, walls, walls. We have never depended on people. It's an illusion. We have depended on substances, but we have never related to people. So, autonomy means moving away from dependencies and toward relationships, our true need. You let go of false needs and come to the true need for good relationships with others. I mean, is it primarily about openness and a kind of unconditional love? And when do the conflicts end? You're going to have conflicts as long as you keep eating and sleeping. It will always be that way, you can check it out. I don't expect you to believe me. But as long as you keep eating, you're going to keep feeding the false ego, and you're always going to be in conflict. 20 minutes of sleep and a fight already arises. You move forward on the road, and with just 15 minutes of sleep you already attract conflict. You walk down the street and dogs bark at you. Because when you don't sleep at all, animals start following you in packs, dogs, cats, fish in the sea that swim toward you. I could tell you many stories. The fish swim right into your hands, and you can catch them. Sexuality is a very important topic in general, because we devour it. In psychoanalysis, sexual energy is called libido, the energy of life. In the Slavic Vedas, vital. In India, ojas, chi, kundalini. This energy is our main driving force, the energy of desire and manifestation. Food and sleep eliminate it. You stop desiring. Food makes a person lose desire, because both sexuality and its sublimation into creativity or children depend on it. Autonomy generally implies having many children, because we believe that children are a product of our creativity. I deeply apologize, but the modern individual has sex with food, literally speaking, fills their stomach, becomes pregnant with that food, and then gives birth to the product of their creativity. And a product of modern human creativity, you know what that is? That's how it is. You said, don't sleep or eat for a while, and you'll see that you no longer have conflicts. But how do you achieve that? If I don't eat or drink for a day, I'll die of weakness. I simply can't. Of course, because your body stops receiving its stimulants. It had become accustomed to certain stimulations. It's an internal restructuring. First, you have to eliminate sleep. If you don't eat or drink, but you do sleep, you'll feel bad, because sleep is the main stimulant. The main task is to eliminate sleep. The first thing is not to lie on your back, because you activate the helplessness program. It's like the insect that stays on its back and no longer controls its situation. This is the most helpless position. In maternity wards, women are placed in this position to give birth, completely dependent. They no longer control anything. If we talk about autonomy, management skills, strength and control, what does this position lying on your back mean? That they can do whatever they want to you. In hospitals, they also place you on your back. It's the corpse position. Why is it bad to lie down? As Buteyko said, sleeping is dangerous because breathing becomes deeper. And you'll notice this in your practices. When you sleep, you start breathing deeply, and breathing is the most difficult process. even more so than drinking. So your next goal is to practice not breathing or breathing too little. The first thing that makes breathing difficult is sleep. I believe that one should not practice any breathing exercises because sleep naturally deepens breathing. It is the biggest stimulator in the world, and everyone sleeps. Food does the same thing. If you eat, you breathe deeper. So what's the point of doing these practices, paying money, breathing deeply, and still living on stimulants? There's no way out. Ultimately, oncology by the age of 60, and the scenario remains the same for everyone. That's why we didn't like that situation. It's not what we want. We have another option. We can eliminate sleep completely and feel great. Start swimming and running for 3 to 5 hours. Try it. For example, don't sleep tonight and start running. You'll see that your breathing doesn't get louder, nor do you feel short of breath. When you eliminate sleep, the shortness of breath disappears. That's why you can run as much as you want, swim as much as you want. You get tired because your breathing accelerates. There's no more to it. The only problem is that you can't do anything for a long time. Everything is elementary simple, there's no mysticism in it. Physiologically, no person should eat, drink or sleep. They shouldn't. Nastya, tell us about your system and how you came to this. It sounds very harsh. In fact, I insist it's the norm for any modern inhabitant of our planet. But if you understand that this is true, how do we start? By replacing sleep with physical activity, understanding that sleep is the body's response to dissatisfaction, to laziness. Sleep brings laziness, depression, a loss of interest in the world around us and in people. What important role do children play? Children are our alarm clocks. They scream. Everything in the world is designed to wake us up. As soon as food is taken away, we begin to see that everything around us is trying to wake us up. Just don't fall asleep. Practitioners know this. As soon as they're about to fall asleep, something falls on their head or a loud noise comes. A call, a text message. Just don't fall asleep. And animals also help with this. Mosquitoes and flies appear. All animals are our helpers. So I don't know how we can eat them. Also, we can replace sleep with speaking. If you give a talk, for example, you go into speaking mode. And so you can stay awake as long as you want. But if you don't do it like that and you're alone, you'll definitely fail. You'll fall asleep. But you said that when you don't eat, drink or sleep, reality opens up. What exactly opens up? Can you tell us? Look, guys, there's a lot of talk about extrasensory powers, flying and other things. Just being able to distinguish lies from truth so clearly is a huge thing. I mean, everyone thinks this is something alien to us. But it's very simple. You become very honest with yourself and with those around you, without masks. I mean, you don't fit in. In general, everything you draw, everything you write, begins to come true. That is, your true scenario begins to become a reality in life. Not a false scenario, but a true one. Because a dream is a lie, a mistake. When you stop sleeping, your true scenario, your true destiny appears. In other words, you begin to build your truth. While you sleep, you won't be able to find your true path. I'm convinced of that, because sleep is a lie. And you can't talk about self-understanding or any purpose if you live a lie.
So only children and animals sleep, right? And when children grow up, they start giving, and they also need less and less sleep and less food.
And children shouldn't sleep at all either. Thanks for the question.
But how can they give if they're still little and can't even walk?
It doesn't matter. Children shouldn't sleep. Many children don't sleep. It's an inconvenience for parents. They sent me a video from the United States about babies who don't sleep. It's a huge inconvenience for parents. They inject them with tranquilizers to make them sleep. Because it suits them. And that's how it's done everywhere.
But what about animals? Don't they also sleep? They just fall asleep, right?
For a horse to lie down, only a sick horse would lie down, right? Horses don't even lie down. And, you know, the whole world around us is our projection. Animals eat because we eat. Animals stop eating when people stop eating. I mean, the animals of non-eaters don't eat. And the children stop eating or eat very little, their diet becomes very light. For example, half a pear every few days. Children shouldn't be fed either. There's no breastfeeding, they can't be breastfed. They vomit after milk. In other words, regurgitation is vomit, nothing more than vomit. And since their body is still clean, they immediately vomit and regurgitate. In other words, everything comes out everywhere. Then they're placed face up, and they start screaming even louder because of that corpse-like position. Are there many who don't eat? Yes, it's a very large community. People from all over the world, the US, Israel, Italy, Spain, so many countries.
You said you have that kind of school.
No, there's no school. It's not really my thing. I mean, teacher, school, I'm kind of moving away from those ideas. How many of you are like that? I don't even know, I think several thousand. But each one follows a different path. Some, for example, eat once a week, like Marina, others less often, others more often. Some follow a light diet. I mean, I can't say who is completely autonomous. Slava Timoshenko, my friend, who also swims autonomously, swam across Lake Baikal. He broke a world record, swimming for a day and covering 56 kilometers autonomously. All this data is on the internet.
It's all very simple for me, guys. I'll tell you a little about why I came. Because Nastya has 2 college degrees. I'm an ordinary person, you know, like a Siberian felt boot. I was packing tomatoes and cucumbers, huge rows of them, in overshoes and an old t-shirt. I weighed 110 kilos. And on top of that, I had a 3rd-degree disability and an oncological condition. And I had radiation therapy, chemotherapy, and so on. According to statistics, life expectancy is 10 years. I exceeded those 10 years, and then they told me, well, you'll last 1 more year. Because they burned everything. They burned my esophagus, my valves, etc. I did my calculations, I always joke about this, and saw that dying is expensive. The coffins are expensive. So I decided to live anyway. The issue of autonomy isn't the same as not eating. Your character changes, you become a completely different person. You speak differently, you dream differently, you interact differently. It's much more than not eating. The world around you changes. My goals are changing. I flew to Sochi and ate 2 cucumbers a few days ago. That's it. I didn't eat anything else. I didn't even open my wallet. They gave me those 2 cucumbers. Can you imagine the savings? Calculate how much you spend on food, and you'll be amazed at the amount of equipment and expenses. You need a 5-meter kitchen, a bunch of gadgets to make smoothies, and so on. Now you don't need any of that anymore. It's a completely different world. I tried all kinds of methods before. I lived in a community in Vissarionovskoye. My husband was a blacksmith, and his greatest satisfaction was filling the cellar so he could go in and spend 2 hours looking at all the potatoes we'd harvested. That was his happiness. He lives this way, and it's wonderful. I love him very much. One day I went to help him and prepared 10 liters of poison, rhubarb and jam, which he loves. I left because that's his idea of happiness, and I accept it. I can't convince him, even though he sees me. Nastya and I met a year and 4 months ago. She came to Petropavlovka, where I lived, in the Krasnoyarsk region. We're both from Krasnoyarsk. She came to give a lecture. When my friend arrived, I said, let's listen to her. She's a crazy girl. She doesn't eat, drink, or even sleep. Let's see what she says. After that, I became autonomous right away, on the second day. Listen to what she says. Now she doesn't say much. Listen to her lectures. I was instantly hooked. I always show this photo of how I looked a year and a half ago. This is me. It's impressive because I'm a completely different person now. I weighed 110 kilos. I love this photo because Nastya is by my side. I approached her and said, "Let me smell you. What do you smell like? Because when you stop eating, you usually smell bad. And she smells perfect." Suddenly, I did the math and figured out that in my life I'd eaten about 17 tons of food. Calculate how much you eat, roughly, and multiply it by your age. You eat and drink about 2 kilograms a day. Imagine ingesting 17 tons in your lifetime. That's the amount of vitamins we consume. We're completely over-vitaminized. I'm only 57 years old. I was a skier, and in the end I couldn't even get near a mountain. I was afraid. And now you know what I think about. The 10-kilometer black run in Switzerland. Riding it. I'm not afraid anymore. This year, after living in Vietnam for 3 months, I suddenly decided to learn windsurfing. I hoisted the sail and took off, and I never fell. In other words, a different feeling about life. I'm 57, but I live like I'm 30. And I'm rewriting my past. That is, what seemed wrong to me. And I'm rewriting it with joy. Before, I felt like men had disappointed me. I had 2 husbands. I lived 21 years with my first husband and 6 years with the second in the Vissarionovsky community. It's a sect, sectarianism. We all ran and extended our hands to the teacher. If you know what the City of the Sun is or have heard of it, there are wonderful people there. It's extraordinary. The entire elite of St. Petersburg and Moscow is gathered there. They sold their apartments and came to build the Sun community. And what the teacher says is great, but it doesn't work. Autonomy does work, and you don't need to pray.
And tell me, how do you deal with fear? What do you encounter first? Because I want to transition to autonomy, and I understand that, but...
I was incredibly motivated, and I had no other choice. That's why I'm here now.
So on the second day, all your fears disappeared?
I asked Nastya on the phone, what am I going to do with this autonomy? She told me, you will become free. And that word caught me, stuck in my head, and I was freed. I came to Sochi for the 3rd time, with my pension of 10,000 rubles, which is about 110 euros. I'm waving to Putin. I managed to come for the 3rd time. Now I've been invited to Moscow, because I discovered I can work on the spine. This year I got a profession. I took the exams with 30-year-olds who do yoga. And I survived. You become very resilient. You run on the track at the gym. You don't run very far, just 6 kilometers, but you're already running for 2.5 hours, and you're not short of breath or having breathing problems. And Nastya hasn't eaten for 2.5 years. I can see this because I've lived with her for a long time. She's an interesting girl. She can run 10 kilometers in the middle of the night. She needs it. I mean, life changes you. You need to either communicate or move. I'm talking to you, and my mouth is full of saliva. I'm almost choking, as if I've eaten my fill. I don't know where that comes from. I'm not a doctor. I have a favorite saying, God save me from the doctors, and I can deal with the rest of my enemies on my own. Sorry if there are doctors here. I'm not talking about those doctors, like the one in the Vissarian community, who can put your liver back together with their bare hands. She's my teacher. And in my autonomy, I suddenly discovered that I could feel my vertebrae, and that I could feel people through my skin, and I love people. Today I haven't eaten or drunk for 4 days, and I love you all so much, because I don't see anything wrong with you. I accept you as you are. I accept myself as I am. I don't care at all how you react to me, because I am good and I take care of myself, and then you are good too. You have the right to be who you are, and if you eat meat, then by all means. I don't judge you. I'm just telling you, sharing my experience, that you don't have to eat. And this world is changing. That's what I want to tell you. I especially love oncology patients. I always give them my phone number. I know how they feel, I know what they see. Their environment directs them to the cemetery. What are radiotherapy and chemotherapy? It's the cemetery. And what is autonomy? It's life. My skin has changed, my eyes. I was born blind. I've had 7 operations, starting with Fedorov's cleft. And now, on my 4th day without food and water, I see well. But if I eat, my vision worsens.
Marina, tell me, what's life like in the cities? It's difficult, isn't it? Everything there is contaminated, civilization.
Nastya explains it very well.
Well, I haven't washed my body in about a year and a half.
So you just swim, right?
And I haven't washed my hair in a year either.
I call my friend and say, let me clean your kitchen, because I don't sleep. First I cleaned everything, then the creative process began. I always wanted to do patchwork. I started painting because my eyes started seeing. You start creating wonderful things. I started learning English. Honestly, I'm not very good at it. I'm always working on something. And beautiful things come out. Or suddenly I put on some music and start dancing. I danced when I was 30. At 57, I don't anymore. I would sit and fall asleep sitting up. Chemotherapy destroyed me. I took baking soda because the heartburn was terrible. I knew I was dying, and calmly, without telling anyone, I smiled. They told me everything would be okay, and I pray to God. Every day I kneel down. And now I feel so light.